Hi, 5th grade. This is Ms. Williams with your poetry lesson for Friday, the 29th of January. Learning targets today are I can look at 2 poems from the same section of this book and identify mood and consider the overall point of view of the author and the poet. And I can identify similarities and differences between ideas and themes. You will need your writer's notebook and a pencil for today's lesson. In your writer's notebook, you should have a page that looks like this, and it says Figurative Language Toolbox. And we've talked about similes, we've talked about metaphors, and we've talked about personification. These other words we will get to eventually. We haven't done them yet. But you need to write, at least for sure, the words that I've highlighted. So similes use words like or as to compare two unlike things. And a metaphor they state a direct comparison, and they use the word is. And personification is giving human-like qualities to non-living or non-human things. So these are definitions. There's also a picture embedded into the assignment. You can copy that later. Please do not take a screenshot. If you need to send it to Notability, that's fine, but this should actually be in your writer's notebook because this is something you are going to use and refer back to. So please, when this is over, take some time and copy this into your notebook. We are going to be using the book again out of wonder. We read a poem the other day about the doctor who is also a poet. We are going to read 2 more poems, one today and one tomorrow. But Kwame Alexander, Chris Colderly, and Majorie Wentworth are all author poets, and they wrote poems about other poets that they really, really like. So that's why this book is poems celebrating other poets. So when you read this poem, you're going to read a poem today about a poet whose name is Maya Angelou. And Kwame Alexander wrote a poem, and you're going to kind of try and figure out the mood or how he feels about Maya. Again, we're going to go back to this wheel that we talked about in yesterday's assignment. And when writers and poets talk about feelings and what are you feeling, they're talking about the mood, and it's the mood or the tone that they set when they're writing a poem. So these are some words that we're going to look at today. And here is the poem, Majestic, celebrating Maya Angelou. So remember, Maya Angelou was a poet, and Kwame Alexander is a poet, but this poet, Kwame, wrote a poem about Maya Angelou. So we're going to read this poem. Rise into the wonder of daybreak. Be a rainbow in the cloud. Be a free bird on the back of the night wind. Shine on, honey. Walk with joy on your golden feet over crystal seas and purpled mountains. Know your beauty is the thunder, your precious heart unsalable. Be brave, like a new seed bursting with extraordinary promise. Shine on, honey. Know you are phenomenal. So what were you feeling while reading this poem or listening? And remember from yesterday's, writers call this mood. So how was the mood created in this poem? What were you feeling? How did the writer make you feel? And what words and phrases did the writer use to create this feeling? If you want, you can go back and circle, or you can write in your notebook any words in this poem that helped with the mood. What are you feeling? Were you feeling anger, frustration, happiness, joyful, excitement? What was the mood that you were feeling? So take a minute and write this in your notebook. Again, using one of these emotions. So what emotion were you feeling and what words helped support that? And then I'm going to read a little bio of Anja Milo. And she was born in 1928 and died in 2014. Maya Angelou's extraordinary life is a testament to the power of endurance. She was born in a segregated rural area of St. Louis, Missouri, but she spent long periods of time in the rural South with her grandmother in Stamps, Arkansas. Her childhood was particularly difficult, having been abused at the age of 7. In 1940, Angelou moved to San Francisco, where she graduated from high school at 16 and gave birth to a son at 17. She began dancing lessons for a career in theater and became the city's first female African-American streetcar conductor. She continued acting and performing off and on throughout her life. Angela recounts her life as a dancer touring Europe in the cast of Porgy and Bess in the third volume of her autobiography, Singin' and Swingin' and Gettin' Merry Like Christmas. In the late 1950s, she joined the Harlem Writers Guild and became involved with the American Civil Rights Movement. In the early 1960s, she lived and worked overseas, first in Cairo and then in Ghana, where she was a writer and an editor for the African Review. She was among the cast members of the historic television miniseries Roots in the late 1970s. Altogether, Maya Angelou wrote 6 autobiographies. The first book, I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings, became a bestseller. She also wrote several volumes of poetry, including Oh Pray My Wings Are Going to Fit Me Well in 1975, and Still I Rise in 1978, I Shall Not Be Moved in 1990, the complete collection Poems of Maya Angelou in 1994. Her poems are admired for their inspirational and motivational messages. In addition, she is the author of several books for children, as well as collections of essays. In 1993, she recited her poem On the Pulse of Morning at President Bill Clinton's inauguration. Over the years, she has received numerous honors and awards, including more than 50 honorary degrees from colleges and universities. She received the National Medal of Arts in 2000, and in 2011 was presented with the Presidential Medal of Freedom. When Maya Angelou passed away in 2014, she received tributes from Oprah Winfrey, President Barack Obama, and former President Clinton, among others. So now that you have a little bit of background knowledge on Maya Angelou and who she was and what she accomplished in her lifetime, think about, when we read the poem again, which words and phrases show the reader what Kwame Alexander's attitude is towards his subject, and his subject in this poem is the poet Maya Angelou. So we'll read the poem again. Majestic. Celebrating Maya Angelou. Rise into the wonder of daybreak. Be a rainbow in the cloud. Be a free bird on the back of night wind. Shine on, honey. Walk with joy in your golden feet over crystal seas and purpled mountains. Know your beauty is a thunder, your precious heart unsalable. Be brave like a new seed bursting with extraordinary promise. Shine on, honey. Know you are phenomenal. What words and phrases in the poem show what Kwame Alexander's attitude is toward Maya Angelou? What is the mood that he is creating writing about this poem? And how does that make you feel? What mood are you getting from this poem? So this is something you're going to write in your notebook, and hopefully you have been writing as this lesson has gone on. So the author uses words when they're talking about the poet and when they're writing the poem. They created a mood by using certain words. What were some of those words? How did you feel writing this poem? Did it change or help you understand this poem a little bit better after you had some background information about Maya Angelou? After you knew what kind of a person she was and what her life accomplishments were, and you listened to the poem again, did you pick up on some different things the second time you read the poem? If you need to go back and read it a third time, you certainly can. So for today's writing assignment, you are going to write another poem about the same person, or you could write about another person. It's totally up to you. But you need to focus on how to evoke a particular mood or feeling about that person, just like we did in today's poem with Maya Angelou. Is that going to be excitement or sadness or wonder, curiosity? Again, you can look at that wheel that we put in there with all of the moods and the feelings and use that to get some ideas. You could write about mom or dad, grandma or grandpa, friends, cousins, neighbors. We're not writing about pets today. That's another assignment. But you need to think of a person in your life. It could be somebody from school. It could be somebody next door. It could be somebody that you used to be friends with and they moved away. Just as long as you are writing about a person. So in your notebook today, the toolbox was on the page before this, so you've turned the page and you've got 2 pages. On this side over here, the poem about a person, you can use the same poem that you did the day before, but maybe you're going to need to add or change some words so that you can evoke a feeling, excitement, sadness, whatever your feeling is. On this side, we've talked about similes and metaphors and what they are, and that's from your toolbox. See if you can find an example from today's poems. I know this says find examples of similes in the poems Majestic and Hue and Cry. Hue and Cry is tomorrow's poem, so we're just going to focus on the poem Majestic that we read today. What are some examples of similes and metaphors that you found in that poem? See if you can find 1 or 2 and write them in your notebook. And then what was the author's meaning or tone? What was their attitude when they used that word? Okay, if the example is, baby, you're a shooting star, what's the attitude that the author is saying when they write that? That's what you need to look for today. If you have questions, be sure and ask your teacher, or you can email me. Good luck with this assignment. Remember to put everything in your writer's notebook.